Here we go. I'm clamping Boker EDK in my Hype Smasher device. I've shown how I do it all the time, and every time I palpitate when I do it because most of the knives you see me test are paid out of pocket. The purpose of this experiment or demonstration is to determine whether a lock will unlock under stress and how durable the knife is as an assembly when it reacts to the transferred impulse. Hype Smasher is the former Arbor press, and the weight of this ram is 2.5 pounds. The distance, which is what I'm trying to keep consistent from knife to knife, is 6 inches. So this throat here is about 6 inches tall. I mark how much the knife is recessed in the slot there on the bar and drop it onto the spine of the knife about 2.25 inches from the pivot. I test the lock for function before resetting for the next strike. The knife set me back about $160, so I'm a little nervous because the knife is made out of rather inexpensive feeling plastic, the handle that is. Most knives pass this test without any damage or concerns. Some don't. So I think the experiment is designed pretty well. It weeds out the weaker mechanisms. Let's take the knife out of the clamp and see if any damage has resulted. The lock still functions, as you just saw. The blade is still where it's supposed to be. The function did not improve. Actually, maybe it did. I don't know. Yeah, about the same. And there's no vertical or horizontal play in the blade. So all in all, I am pretty impressed with how that turned out. Feel free to comment on how realistic you think this test is or isn't. Next, I am inserting the blade into another oak wood clamp to make sure it's securely fastened in there, because I'm going to do the strain tests. First test will be to determine whether or not the heat treat allows for enough elasticity or allows for deformation without permanently damaging the knife. I bend it 15 degrees, as you can see on my carpenter scale here, which exceeds even the military standards for testing bladed weapons. I repeated 3 times. Try that while holding your breath. And the more I like the blade, the less excited I am about this experiment. But hey, I am the one who designed that test, so I better follow through. So 3 times, and now I'm going to reach around and do a handle twist test. So it's a torsional strain here, and that exposes the entire mechanism to immense strain because it affects stop pins, screws, bearings, pivot hardware, etc. Let's see how the knife fared. I don't see any bending with the naked eye. I'll put it on a block in a second. The mechanism still works. The blade is still centered. There's no play in vertical or horizontal direction. All in all, I'm pretty happy, and my qualms about it being made out of cheaper plastic are relieved. So I'm placing it on the block here. This is the same block that I use for hardness test, which is coming up. And I detect just as slight as maybe 1/4 degree declination at the tip. So there was a permanent deformation. The blade is still centered though, and without the block I could not have determined that it is slightly bent. But I think it will still sharpen. And now we are going into my favorite part, which is the hardness test. I'm checking the back of the blade for flatness, the tang area. My goal is to reduce the area of contact between the test block and the blade. That reduces a possibility that any kind of even minute curvature in the blade's surface will cause inaccurate or lower than necessary results on this tester. So because I think that Boker ground these blades after the heat treat, which is the more appropriate way of doing it than grinding to final thickness before the heat treat and then just touching up the surface. I feel that no modification to the blade tank, there's no need to actually make it any flatter. And as you can see, I am getting 62.9 to 64 HRC with an average of 63.5, which is a great evidence to the consistency of my Leeb tester. Feel free to calculate the standard deviation here and do a Six Sigma analysis on all these 10 strikes. You're about to see 5 more on this side. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, no worries. I will do the introduction to statistical analysis of collected data when I do a comparison video between the Rockwell tester and this here Leeb. The Rockwell tester is on its way. It's going to ship this week. And as soon as it comes here, we'll start thinking about the experiment. Right now, I'd like to thank everyone who used my affiliate link to buy tools that I have in the description. It adds up, and after several months, I had almost enough to pay for the Rockwell tester. 63.8 HRC average on this side of the blade. So let's just say Boker has heard our request from the community to have MagnaCut in the highest possible range. And I don't remember if I mentioned 120 thousandths of an inch is the thickness of this blade. It's slightly over 3 millimeters. And now I'm going to verify the calibration of my device. This is my Leeb. This particular block is certified to be at 787 Leeb points. And it takes me 5 strikes to get an average so that I can let you know whether or not I'm experiencing a zero shift today. So the average is 791. Zero shift is 0.3 HRC. And because of that, we will adjust the overall hardness to 63.5. Still very, very good. We're now taking a peek inside. Boker engineers selected full-length steel liners and adjustable Omega spring locations here. Those holes are to adjust tension on the Omega spring, which we will try. And the goal of my disassembling it, I wanted to see what's causing this knife to have a detent play when in a closed position. I'm using my brand new set of Hoto screwdrivers. I just got them from Amazon. The whole package of 3 was $42, so it's the least expensive set to date. I will throw an affiliate Amazon link in the video description. These things, they do help me buy expensive test equipment like that Rockwell tester that is coming to the channel, which was $1,450 plus $50 for shipping and tax. And it ate up 3 or 4 months worth of Amazon income, not to mention additional $260 out of pocket. Things we do in the name of science. I do sincerely appreciate any super thanks that you purchase or joining the membership on the channel. Okay, I'm ready to take a look at what's causing the detent problems here. There's a clear gap between the crossbar and the recess on the tang of the blade. And that is why the crossbar is not fully engaged in a closed position. Good news is, with the help of a Dremel, I should be able to address this issue and show you how it works out. Looks like there are 2 issues here. The width of the recess is insufficient, and the crossbar hangs up on this sharp protrusion. My plan is to widen the recess and put a camming radius on that tip to ensure better engagement between the crossbar and the tang. After 3 minutes with a Dremel and a diamond tool, I get this. I did have to get into the recess itself just to make sure that the crossbar fits all the way toward the back. And now the blade recesses correctly. It's almost like that suction action, as you just saw. And here's the before and after. As you can see, there's a tremendous difference in the engagement without doing much of the alteration. Right here, it's fully bottomed out in the recess, and the camming action became a lot smoother. To say that I'm surprised is an understatement. I expected a lot more from a knife manufactured in Germany, from their quality control, especially because as an engineer, I know that could be addressed on the drawing via proper dimensioning and tolerancing. Additionally, I adjusted both omega springs to be at their tightest setting before reassembling the knife, and I am about to find out if these adjustments and alterations made a significant improvement. Remember, what I'm looking for is 1.2 or higher detent force measured with my trigger gauge. Another substantive issue with this knife is the fact that it is not easy to adjust the springs due to complications in disassembly reassembly. You see, they chose a Chicago-style pivot hardware instead of doing a middle pivot pin with two screws, one to each side, like you see on Spyderco Mannix, for example. And because of that, you can adjust the spring on the clip side easily, but when you switch to the show side, you have to take the blade out and disassemble a lot of the knife from that direction. So another little pointer. But I think my efforts improved. I don't know if they completely eliminated the play, but they definitely improved some of it. And the detent feels a lot more playful in hand, even though I am clearly not a backflip expert. I do get it right once in a while. And even harder still is the inverse flick, where the knife ends up in a defensive position in your hand. Please don't repeat any of these experimentations at home. This video is for entertainment purposes only, and you should be very careful when using or handling sharp objects. And remember, testing a sample of one is never an industry standard method. So let's see if there was any improvement in the force here. So I got 1 pound. Let's do a couple more. 1 pound again. And another 1 pounder. So all my efforts led to about 10-11% improvement in how detent feels and operates. I think angling this recess on the tang of the blade would also aid in a proper detent, but for some reason engineers at Zollingen, is it Zollingen or Zollingen? I think it's Zollingen. I don't think they gave it enough thought, so and I still have just a hair of that play. I don't know. You guys tell me what you think. I think the blade is beautiful and well heat treated. While it's not the best flicking knife in the world, it did hold up quite well through all my testing. Even after disassembling and reassembling it several times, the blade remained centered. This knife is clearly designed to compete with these two American knives, Hogue Deca and Kirscher Bel Air. They definitely are subpar to the Hogue Deca, both in handle materials, overall feel. Where this knife does excel is the heat treat of the blade, because out of the three here, it scored the highest in this department. My favorite part, scoring. This knife has a blade under 3 inches, making it legal in most jurisdictions. Very lightweight, under 3 ounces. Edge to weight ratio is 1.12, which is pretty high. Pocket clip is not that great, especially for wire clip. As you can see, it only scores 1 point, and that is for retention, so it will not be particularly comfortable to use. Blade deployment only deploys properly 2 ways, and detent force is below what I consider good. It is finger safe. It did not unlock on the smasher test and sustain no damage. It's made out of complex alloy, and a popular one at that, MagnaCut. It is a powdered steel, and it is heat treated to a high number, making it very desirable for a lot of American knife users. This tip survived the bending test, but the blade was deformed just slightly, although no play opened up. Edge retention was Better than 50%, but mediocre, so only 1 point. Behind the edge thickness is excellent at 13 thousandths. Now let's look at 10% joy adjustment factors. Materials equality, pretty low score here. Bragging rights associated with the German knives? Yeah, sure, why not? It is very corrosion resistant, and the knife has a sexy looking and very practical blade. The price is $143 currently. 18.12 points is the overall score. And now let's take a look where it stacks up against all the other knives that I've tested to date. I'd like to hear in the comments what you think about my scoring system here. Score of 18.12 lands it in the 9th position. Remember, there are 2 knives sharing #1 spot. And now for the joy factor adjustments, thanks to which it was bumped to 23.6 points. It lands in the 10th place. And now for the bang for the buck or satisfaction per price factors. Let's see where it ends up. And we're in the 8th position. If you're a glass half full type of person, then you can say it's a very well balanced knife. And a glass half empty person would say there is a mismatch between the quality of the blade and the quality of the rest of the knife. I'm from Ukraine. Our glass is either full or instantly empty. And if you ask me, it's a good way to live your life. Bottoms up, everybody.